Family disputes can make us feel isolated and vulnerable. Maybe you're going through a divorce or a legal dispute about your kids. Perhaps you've spent hours on Google or have even posted anonymously on Facebook to see what others have to say. But are you getting the actual information and support that you're looking for? Our podcast, Legal Lounge, aims to dispel misinformation and downright bad legal information to empower anyone with questions about their family, their children, their finances, their marriage, and the law. As a team focused exclusively on family law matters, we aim to help listeners not only with the information they need, but also with the hope that their situation has a solution. Short disclaimer, please note this podcast is for educational purposes only, and the information should not be relied upon as legal advice or for legal purposes. Welcome back to the Legal Lounge. We are so excited to have a representative of one of my favorite nonprofits here in the Charlotte, North Carolina community. And I think, especially because I personally have been involved with this nonprofit for a number of years, and I've seen some of the children and families that have been served. I say this with a very humble heart. I am so excited to have the executive director of the Relatives, Ms. Trish Hobson, with us today.
Well, thank you, Theresa, for inviting me. I'm so excited to be here today, and I'm grateful for all the ways you've served the relatives and the kids and families that are affected by abuse, neglect, and crisis in our community. I'm Trish Hobson, Executive Director of the Relatives. I've been in my role for about 7.5 years.
Wow. So you have seen the nonprofit not only grow, but also the clientele, if you will, the populations served grow.
Absolutely. We have grown a lot over the little bit of time I've been here. The Relatives started with our crisis center over on East Boulevard in 1974. So this is actually our 50th anniversary. That program started by Dilworth United Methodist Church. They opened up their basement for kids who were sort of hanging out at the local parks and didn't seem to have a place to go. And so they launched this shelter for runaway and homeless youth that we have today and has been there since 1974. And then in 2010, we added our on-ramp program, which serves a little bit older population. So we're serving 16 to 24-year-olds at our on-ramp resource center. And that just helps those young adults who don't have a family to help them become independent. So lots of those kids have aged out of foster care, been pushed out of their home for any number of reasons, or just don't have parents that are able to help them. So we've greatly expanded our reach over those years. Over the past 7 years since I've been here, we've actually moved that on-ramp resource center into a new, bigger building. So we're able to serve a lot more kids. So yeah, a lot of growth.
So tell us a little bit more in detail about like the unique services the Relatives specifically offers in our community, and maybe even a story of an example of a child that you've served.
So the Crisis Center, again, is a shelter for runaway and homeless youth. We're the only shelter in Charlotte that serves as an emergency shelter for that population. And we provide a number of services out of that location. So we have 9 beds, and kids ages 7 to 17 can stay there for up to about 30 days. We have a partnership with our Department of Social Services. So kids who are usually just coming into DSS custody, and that means that they have been removed from their home because there's been an allegation or abuse or neglect, or proven abuse or neglect. So they've been removed from their home. They're coming into DSS custody, but they don't have a foster family yet. So they'll stay with us for a short period of time while that's sorted out. Other kids are pushed out of their homes or run away from their houses, or their parents may be homeless. We have a family right now whose mom has been sleeping in her car. She's homeless, and the kids are staying with us while she works with one of the other local organizations to get housing. We also run the Safe Place program out of that shelter. So that means that we're recruiting partners throughout our community to hang that yellow Safe Place sign. We're training the staff and all the children in our community to understand that if a child is in need, they can walk into one of those places and they call the Relatives, and we can pick them up and then figure out what we need to do from there. We also offer crisis hotline 24 hours a day. Anybody, any age can call and get referral services. And then we have walk-in services available as well. An interesting story, actually, about a young person who stayed at the crisis center is Daniel. He and his sister came to the crisis center when they were in high school, maybe not even high school. I think Daniel was 14. And they were homeless. Their mom was an addict, and so she struggled mightily with her addiction, and they were in and out of homelessness a lot. So they stayed with us for a while when they were young. And right after they stayed with us, their mom actually pulled them out of school because she was so afraid that the Department of Social Services would take her kids away from her. She was afraid that now they were sort of on the radar, so to speak. So Daniel and his sister were not able to finish school because their parents would, their mom would not allow it, basically. So fast forward, when Daniel turned 18, he came over to our on-ramp resource center. So that again is our program that helps young people ages 16 to 24 get connected to education, employment, housing, mentors, that kind of thing, so that young people can become independent. So he came to us. He knew about the relatives because he had been at the crisis center and got involved in our case management services. So he was able to quickly get his GED once he turned 18, because then he didn't need his mom's permission to sign up to take the class. He was homeless, and we were able to get him into housing. Part of our program pays for subsidies, basically. So we'll pay for rent for a year and provide case management services so those young people can become independent. So over time, they're taking on more and more of that rent as we're sort of backing off the rent. The other thing we offer is employment services. Daniel was able to get connected to another nonprofit, the Community Culinary Institute, and was trained to become a chef, and he's now working in a restaurant. That's sort of an example of the, I would say, the depth of the services we're able to provide from the time someone is very young until they're a young adult, to help them get stabilized.
And I really like how multifaceted the approach is, right? Because we're not just talking about, okay, let's get this person's GED done, and then okay, good luck.
Yeah.
It is more of, okay, not only do you need the GED, but you probably need housing. You probably need a little bit of financial help, like the housing subsidy you mentioned. Then go one step further. Maybe he needed a job, right? And so it really is all these tools coming together to create that support system for a number of children all the way around. Building relationships is a natural part of life. But how does the law affect those relationships? Do you want to marry your significant other, but have cold feet from the many divorce horror stories out there? Are you preparing for a custody battle against your ex? That is where Modern Legal comes in. We offer education and knowledge about the law when it affects the relationships near and dear to your heart. To learn more about how family law affects your family, book a consultation with an attorney of our Modern Legal team by visiting our website, emailing us, or calling us at 704-286-6302. Check out the information about Modern Legal Services at modernlegalnc.com. Can you briefly explain where the term the relatives came from?
Yes. So this is a fun story. So the members of Dilworth United Methodist Church were welcoming these kids into their church, and they found out very quickly when they were working with the kids that the kids would rather say, when asked if they needed a place to stay, they'd much rather say, "Oh, I'm good, I'm staying with relatives," rather than say, "I'm homeless," or "I don't have a place to stay." And so that term really stuck. And we really embrace that name, the relatives, because we think of ourselves as the family that these kids often don't have, or are, for many reasons, aren't able to have. So that's where it came from, and it's the culture with which we work, right? So we are looking at, just like any parent would, what is the whole picture of what this kid needs, and we're going to love this kid no matter. We always say every kid that comes to us is more than the bad things that have happened to them and the bad things they've done, right? So we're, like any parent, gonna love them through all of the mistakes that they might make and all of the successes that they're going to have.
I love that. And speaking of all of the mistakes a child may make, let's preface this. Even if they're 19 or 22, they are still young. They're still, very much a child, if you will, or a young adult that needs help from the community. And so at times they will make mistakes that, how should I say, other resources out there are just not built to respond to. I'm a family law attorney. And so, yes, I have seen in the criminal justice system children getting caught up in a system that honestly probably does more harm than good. But the relatives is there to take a different stance and provide different approach.
Yeah, I love the way you said that because it's really true. We've actually had a lot of studying done of the kids that we're serving, and what we know is they're involved in multiple systems. So for your audience might not know, like DSS is one system, criminal justice is another system, there's food and nutrition services is another system, right? And that means they might access that if they need food stamps. And so yeah, what we know is our kids are often involved in many systems and none of them are perfect. And so we sort of like to think of ourselves as the almost the quarterback, like we're helping the kids who are in these systems sort of navigate life because none of them can kind of encompass everything that a child
Mhm.
might need, right? So, and what we also know is there's a lot of research out there that shows that kids that are involved in more than one system are way more likely to end up in prison. They're way more likely to drop out of school. All of the things that lead to not being able to take care of yourself as an adult. And so then, the trajectory is not good. If you end up on those paths, you probably likely to end up chronically homeless. You're likely to end up, in poverty or in jail. So
Mhm.
so we're trying to prevent all of that by
Yeah.
catching kids at an early age and giving them a safe space to make those mistakes, just like I did with my kids when they were that age. And yeah, that's part of what we do.
Yeah, no, that's huge. Sometimes it's hard because they haven't seen this side of the community or this side of the world, because we do have so many systems. So, we are fortunate, generally speaking, in America, North American, United States society, not to see, hundreds of homeless children sleeping on the streets. On the flip side, just because we don't see them doesn't mean that there aren't children in need and in need of help. Wasn't there a study done that upward mobility in Charlotte, we basically rank like last
We
in
do.
the top 50 cities?
Yes, that's absolutely right. We do. So, yeah, and what that means is that a child born into poverty is very unlikely to move out of poverty over their lifetime, right? Where they're born is kind of where they're stuck. So that's not great, right? We want to give our kids the opportunity to break out of those cycles. So that's a huge challenge, and there's lots of things that play into it. It's sort of back to the nobody needs just one thing. They don't just need the GED and then that's it, right? They need their education, they need a support system, they need stable housing, they need a job that can pay for all those things. So it has to be a multifaceted approach to help with that economic growth.
And I guess I'll put a little personal plug here because I know obviously the Relatives does a number of nonprofit activities to garner more support and more awareness. But what I really appreciate about the Relatives specifically is you have a team with individuals that truly care. And so there will be, I've heard it multiple times, one child or one person will say, this person from the Relatives was with me every step of the way. And that's huge because, yes, we need all these tools. But if we don't have someone who believes in us, and I hope the listener can think of in their own lives, who did you have? Like, who was, rooting for you? Like, I had my mom, I had my brother, and I was fortunate to have that. And a lot of the children that the relative sees does not necessarily have that person. So I would just say selfish plug for that the relatives can provide that person that believes in that child.
Absolutely, and we have data, both quantitative and qualitative, that shows that relationship is the key, right? The kids will say it when asked, when interviewed, after they've had some successes, without Gigi, my case manager, there's no way. She believed in me every step of the way. But we also know that the kids that do get involved in the case management, which is basically having you're signing up to have that person on your side when you sign up for case. That's where we get the best success. So the relationship is so important. And when I think about my own kids and my own, I'm so glad you said think back to my own childhood. I had tons of people who believed in me in lots of different facets, right? At school, at home, at my church, and, all over the place. And these kids do often come in very alone. Our goal is to help them create 3 natural supports while they're with us. And when you think about it, 3 is not that many. I could name a dozen probably without thinking about it too hard in my own life. So, but it's the crux of being successful is literally having somebody on your side that will help you navigate, love you, support you, accept you for who you are, all of that stuff. It's really, really important.
Yeah. So another topic I wanted to touch on is the prevalence of survival crimes, especially amongst youth.
Yes. Yeah. A large percentage, well over half of the kids that we serve have been involved in what we call survival crimes. So that's, that could be things like urinating in public. It could be stealing food. It's usually sort of what you would consider in the grand scheme sort of minor, but still criminal activity, things that they can get arrested for. And what we've noticed, interestingly enough, is that when we house kids, so in this study that we did, if they had a criminal activity before they were housed, and we classified that as survival crimes, when they were housed, the incidence of survival crimes completely disappeared. Completely. Wow. There was not a single incident, which just goes to show if you are stably housed and you feel like you have everything you need, then you're not out there committing those survival crimes. And while they might seem minor in some cases, crime is still affecting the community, even if it is a minor crime, right? If they're stealing food, it's coming from somebody's bottom line, most likely, So we also know that people that commit crime are more likely to keep going with those crimes. So stopping those crimes is just huge. And knowing that a stable house can be a huge key in that. And I don't think that your general audience, at least people I talk to, they're usually surprised that 18, 19-year-olds are homeless, right? Mm-hmm. They don't have a stable place to go at night, but they are. And getting them stable can not only prevent the crimes, which is important, but also create all this other success. So,
yeah, I think I would hope, pretty universal that we hope our children grow to be productive and other supportive community members that help build our society and help, I guess somewhat joke. I don't know if this is necessarily a joke, but I've thought about it, that I think, we do have the cure to cancer, and we do have the answer to poverty or the food crisis, and it's in the mind of one of the children that's suffering from it right now. But we as a society need to respond to that need to help that child grow and be able to then share that gift. And so I am obviously not only a supporter, but an advocate for all of these community services, because I'm not, well, first off, no one's going to do it alone. No nonprofit is going to do it alone. And, I have my own little piece as a family law attorney helping families. But it really takes a community to then support our children to become these productive members of our society.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
What are some of the community partnerships that the relatives have here in the Charlotte community?
Right. Well, we work very closely with the other shelters, for the adult shelters, because we don't have a shelter for for young people over the age of 18. We only have that one shelter. So we work very closely with Roof Above, with Salvation Army, their shelters. We also work closely with mental health partners. So we have Project 685 provides mental health services on site, which is huge because many of our kids have had a lot of trauma in their lives, a lot of abuse and neglect. that we need to address. Obviously, we work very closely with landlords. We work closely with Nirvana on our community clinics, the Michael Jordan Clinic, to get our kids the health care that they need. It takes a village. We have a GED tutor that comes in. We work closely with a group called the Lotus Campaign that's helping to provide housing. Also, Ascent Partners. They're the landlords that are really helping our kids. They not only just provide us partnership where we can rent apartments for our kids, but they're also providing staff that are very, very understanding about our kids. And so sort of providing an extension of our services.
And of course, those are like the partners that help you serve the needs of the children and the young adults. What about those community members that help you, understandably, as a nonprofit, simply exist and have
Yes.
funding resources?
We could not exist without our community at large. So we have lots of volunteers that come in, like yourself, people that bring meals or do activities with the kids, workshops, tutoring, mentoring. Hundreds and hundreds of volunteers every year come in and provide all of that kind of stuff. We also obviously rely heavily on fundraising. So donors could not do our work without donors. And that's a broad group everywhere from foundations to individuals, our government, Mecklenburg County and the city of Charlotte and the state of North Carolina all support our work. So yeah, it takes a lot of support to keep it going every day.
How can a listener help from their perspective?
Yeah, so I would say go to therelatives.org. We have a long list of things there that you could do to help. So that's everything from we have an Amazon wish list that updates our daily needs. If that's of interest, we have there's ways to volunteer. You can create a profile and then go in and sort of go into this program we have called Galaxy and pick and choose maybe what times work for you and what you'd like to do. There's a way to donate. We're always updating those things with our latest needs. So I would say, yeah, just go on our website, therelatives.org.
And another plug for the 50-year anniversary. That's huge.
Yes, we're very excited. We have a big celebration coming up on September 5th. We're inviting the entire community, so your entire audience is welcome to come. There'll be a lot of information about that on our website as well, but it's going to be in the Collectors Room on Thrift Road, 5:30 to 8 p.m. on September 5th. And so again, if you want to go to the website and RSVP, save the date. We are excited about that.
That's huge. And obviously this is going to be a fun, big event, but it's my understanding the Relatives does do a number of activities, not only for donors, but for the community at large throughout the year as well.
Yes, we always have something going on. So again, you can always learn more on our website. We have an annual fundraising breakfast in October. So we have a busy fall coming up between that community celebration as well as our fundraiser.
What if someone who's listening to this podcast realizes they have a need for your services, or they know a child, maybe even their own child, that may have a need for your services?
704-377-0602 is the hotline number. You can go to our website or you can just show up at either door, 2219 Freedom Drive or 1100 East Boulevard. You can call, you can show up, you can go to the website and get more information, but those are the best ways to get in touch.
Perfect. And yes, that is here locally located in Charlotte. But I presume the Relatives also, you have partners in other areas of the state and possibly even country in case someone else calls in.
Yes, absolutely. So if you call the hotline and you don't need something locally, they can connect you with, they have all kinds of resources.
Trish, thank you so much. I'm excited to spread the awareness of the Relatives, and also just to give you and your entire team and all the volunteers recognition, much deserved recognition for helping the children in our community.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure to tell our community a little bit more about what we do.
Thank you. Thank you for taking the time to listen to our discussion. To learn more about me and the Modern Legal team, go to our website, modernlegalnc.com, or check out the links in our show notes to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. You can also call us at 704-286-6302. If you have been intrigued by the conversation and would like us to continue our discussions, please subscribe to the podcast and leave us a review. See you next time.